Hello, everyone, and today we are welcome to this podcast, Dr. Mark McKelvie. Mark is a surgeon by trade, but he's specializing in facial aesthetics. I have had the pleasure to teach Mark and know him for a few years. He has a very career, so this episode will be very interesting. Mark, can you please tell us, how did you start in aesthetics?
Oh, that's a good question. I was doing my core surgical training in the UK, and I don't know, I was starting to feel a bit disillusioned with work in the NHS. And I think a lot of doctors go through that sort of period at some point in their careers. But I was always interested in plastic surgery, and I just started to come across non-surgical facial aesthetics, and I wanted to just learn a little bit more. So as I was reading on the internet, I came across cosmetic courses, who I ultimately did my training with, and we just went from there, from a foundation course to a level 7, and I really enjoyed it. I loved doing the treatments, I loved meeting my clients, and it went from there.
And which year are we talking about? When did you start?
That was 2018 when I started the process. Of course, it went over a whole year, the training, and we continue to train, of course. But yes, it started in 2018.
You did level 7.
That's right, yes.
And can you please tell us a little bit about your professional career now? So how do you divide your clinical time?
Yes, so I've got a fairly varied career at the moment. I am based in Manila in the Philippines.
Wow, that is a very exciting part.
Yes, it's different. There are pros and cons to working in the Philippines, which we can talk about later. But essentially, a lot of my time now is based at my clinic, McKelvie Medical, at Manila in the Philippines, and we focus primarily on medical aesthetics. But I also do a little bit of private general practice there as well. However, I still have an NHS hat on periodically, and I work back in the NHS in general and orthopedic surgery periodically in the year as well. I'm licensed both in the Philippines and the UK.
Is there NHS in Philippines, or
no?
We're talking about NHS in the UK.
Exactly, NHS in the UK. It's a different system in the Philippines, but in the Philippines, I just work within my own clinic.
I did certain steps myself, I think, which can correlate to your career. When I came from Ukraine and needed to do all my training here in order to be a dentist and then train in aesthetics, I know that it's not an easy path. Can you please tell us a little bit more about this journey in Philippines? How did it work for you?
Well, it didn't work to begin with. It was actually very, very complicated and difficult. But that was more about getting my medical qualifications recognized in the Philippines. Once that was done, I then needed to take the board exam, which, it's been a while since I did my medical finals. So I had to relearn a lot of subjects that I had forgotten. Okay. But it was fairly straightforward once I got my credentials recognized. I then had to take the board exam in the Philippines. I sat that and I passed that. And then I was able to get my license to practice. It took a little bit of time after that to then get going. It's not the most straightforward of processes, a business in the Philippines. It's a little bit bureaucratic. It takes a little bit more time and effort, but we eventually got there, and I have to say it was definitely worth the time and effort.
And were your UK qualifications in medical aesthetics, including level 7, recognized in Philippines, or do you need to retrain in those as well?
No, you don't need to retrain. They are recognized. The bare minimum anyway for medical aesthetic training is to have a license to practice in the Philippines, or at least you work under a local doctor who is licensed. I wanted my own license so I could work independently in my own clinic, which is why I took the board exam. But no, they are recognised qualifications.
And I also know that we do have a lot of international doctors coming to train with cosmetic courses because the level of training and UK certificate very prestigious. So does it make any difference to your practice in Philippines, the fact that you have UK certification in aesthetics?
Well, I think I think clients always look at people's qualifications. And one of the things I noticed when I was visiting clinics in the Philippines is the sheer number of certificates that are on walls. People like to know that their doctors and their practitioners are well trained and have a varied training along the way. And yes, there's certainly prestige, I think, that is attached. Getting training, not just in the UK, but globally as well, that shows that you've got this broad degree of training from different practitioners all over the world. Yes, there's a way of doing it in the Philippines, and you can get training within the Philippines, but it can be limited or just very focused on one procedure or one particular product. I think the nice thing that I had when I trained with cosmetic courses in the UK is that I was training under several different practitioners, including yourself, and you all have a slightly different approach to doing it. I've also done some training elsewhere abroad, and it's just nice to get, a different aspect from different practitioners and, different different approaches to doing a procedure or getting a particular result. And that is very much valued by clients. And I think that's a very important aspect for practitioners to consider.
So why did you choose to set your clinic in Philippines?
Well, I'm half Filipino, so that makes it a little bit easier. I've always wanted to live out in the Philippines. My mum is Filipino, that side of my family all live out there. But I grew up in Coventry. I did all my medical training and aesthetic training in the UK. But I just wanted, I was at a point in my life where I was starting to do the aesthetics, I was starting to really enjoy it. And I felt, well, why not? And, I've learned from lots of people. I mean, I think you have a very similar philosophy as well, that if there's an opportunity, just go for it. And it either works or it doesn't, but most of the time it does work out. And even if it doesn't, you learn from that experience. So I had this itch, and I felt I needed to just see what it's like. The Philippines, like a lot of parts of the world, but especially in the Philippines, are, I'd say, bordering on obsessed with beauty. There's a massive demand for aesthetic treatments. It seems to be a national sport to have the Miss World, Miss Universe competitions. It's a big event out there, whereas a lot of the world do not follow that anymore. So
I even don't hear if we do have something like that in the UK.
Well, I think they still send people. I think they still send people to the competition, but it's not televised. Certainly not to the extent that it is in the Philippines. So I thought, well, it'd be interesting to try and see if I can make a little bit of a career out there. But also, it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful country, wonderful people, and a quick internal flight to a beach island somewhere. It goes down very, very nicely. So it's got everything going for it. That's not to say that I didn't think about setting up in the UK, but I felt I wanted to start off in the Philippines first and see what would happen.
Well, it sounds so appealing and amazing that, and I presume that work-life balance also plays a huge role. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw on your social media that you have been a judge at one of the beauty contests on Philippines. Am I wrong?
That was a minor contest a while back, but
don't undermine yourself.
No, that's fine. Yes, maybe more opportunities like that to come. But yes, I just underlines how big an industry it is in the Philippines. But actually, not many practitioners compared to, say, the UK, because the regulations are such that you have to be a doctor or a dentist to administer toxin, for example. So you can imagine actually there's a relatively smaller pool of practitioners for the population compared to, say, in the UK. So it is a slightly different.
So the market is better regulated, the industry is better regulated?
Yes, it is. I would say you have to be a qualified doctor or dentist to administer toxin, for example.
What about nurse?
Nurses are not allowed to inject, so you can imagine it's a much smaller group of practitioners there compared to, say, the UK.
Well, I would say that we need definitely a tougher regulation in the UK, and the whole fact that non-medics, that anyone allowed to inject, it's absolute madness. It's so dangerous. And if in Philippines there is a law, I can't understand why they can't make it in the UK.
Indeed. I mean, I know that's something that's been looked at for the last few years, and I think that's come from a recognition of safe practice being really important. Now we see a lot of complications of toxin and particularly filler procedures, and not a lot of accountability and responsibility. So maybe that will change soon.
And let's go back to beauty competition. I'm really interested in that because a long time ago when I was in university, I had my model agency back in Ukraine. So how was it measured, the standards of beauty? How did it felt to be a judge?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to, I think in those sort of situations, it's very hard to measure these sort of things. And
because I would imagine that all girls were stunning.
Of course, and I'm not the best person to ask, you know, how did you measure that? How can you compare? So, beauty is often it's a natural thing, isn't it? You look at someone's face and you think that person is naturally beautiful. And in the same way, you know, you might look at somebody who is perhaps a bit overfilled, or they don't have any, you know, their aesthetic treatments have taken them away from a natural appearance to a fairly unnatural appearance. And yes, you can quantify those sort of things, but a lot of the time it's almost like a gut feeling. And I think that's what we as practitioners always hope to achieve, don't we? And it's what our clients want as well. They come in and they say, I don't want to look unnatural. I don't want to have massive lips. I don't have massive cheeks. They want to look naturally beautiful. And I think that's a real skill and art that, you know, I'm still learning to do. I admit that we're always trying to refine that more and more. It's trying to say, how can we make that person look naturally beautiful given the anatomy that they have? And I think, to be honest, I think that's how it works in these beauty competitions as well. You look at someone and they have features that are, natural proportions. You can look at ratios, you can look at volumes, but a lot of it is just seen, and something in our brain that tells us that person has the right proportions. So. I mean, it was very quick as well. You know, people were coming every few seconds. I had to make a quick decision.
And were any contestants who will obviously have had cosmetic work, were those as well in the competition? Or
no, not so much.
Would be those people not allowed to take part in competition?
No, they would be allowed to take part, but it's interesting when I work in the Philippines is that they do like to go for, on the whole, they like to go for a much more subtle look compared to, say, other parts of the world. I was doing some training with a company in Saudi Arabia, for example, and I think they have a very, very different approach to, say, the Philippines. I think a lot of it is also down to cost of procedures, and I noticed that in Saudi Arabia that the practitioners that we were working with were using huge volumes, for example, and it was seen that those clients wanted a fairly filled look. They wanted the big cheeks, they wanted the big lips. That would not work in the Philippines, and that alongside cost restrictions, I would say, mean that clients in the Philippines prefer to have much smaller volumes of filler, for example, in their lips or in their cheeks. They want a lot more subtle treatment. So I think that's what Filipinos and clients there want to have. And so it's a much more subtle look, I would say.
And Mark, now you're dividing your career between Philippines and UK. How did your family welcome this message that you're going to leave full-time employment. I know that you still have some security of NHS, but obviously it's not the same as working full-time. So did they support you? Did you get the support from the family that you will be moving to a new career, new venture?
Yes, I mean, my family have always been very supportive of my decisions, which is a big part of starting your own business. I mean, I was terrified when I first went out. I don't like change. I think that's quite natural. But you have to put yourself out there and you have to take the opportunities that come. And I'm glad that I did do that. But you're right, it's very hard for someone to leave a secure job to go into the unknown and not know if you're going to be able to earn enough money that month. And of course, when you start off with a brand new business, it's all costs, it's all outgoings, with very little coming in because you're building a client base. So I did find that really quite stressful to begin with, particularly as I don't consider myself a sort of a businessman. I don't have that sort of knowledge or those sort of skills. I'm a clinician.
You are now.
Well, yes, I'm still learning as well. But I think yes, you really do need the support. I mean, it really helps to have the support of family and friends. But even if you don't, and I think it's if it's something that you're determined to do and you're prepared to put the work in. It's something that you should just go and do, you know, and take that leap of faith, because on the whole, it's going to work out. And of course, there are things that are going to go wrong or things that you're going to learn from, but that just makes you a better practitioner and business person, I think. But it is hard. It's very hard, I know.
And would you say so far the risk have paid off?
Yes, I think it has. And actually, the moments where it's really jumped ahead and I've been successful working either with industry or going down the teaching route is those little opportunities that just crop up, and you think, oh, it's easy to not go down that route. It's just easy to do what I'm currently doing, but you have to take these opportunities because they then branch out, they lead on to bigger and better things. And I'm sure if I didn't take all these little opportunities where I was invited to work with industry or invited to go and give a lecture or go and do some teaching, I would not be as successful as I am now, because I've learned from those situations. I've learned skills. I can bring that back to the clinic. It takes me down a route where there's an additional source of income, for example. So I would just say, just take the opportunities, and if it doesn't work out, it's still a learning process. You've learned something from it. But again, I'd say to people, it's still I know it's very hard to do that. It's very easy to say, stay in your safe box. But in this sort of industry that's moving very quickly, as you say, there are treatments that even my staff and clients come and say, oh, have you heard about this? I've never heard about it at all. You know, there's a new thing every week. So you have to keep up. And that's not to say that you have to do it all, but you've got to learn a little bit about it, and you've got to take those new opportunities when they do come up.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so much agree with you. I always would say it's better to try and fail than not to try and regret for the rest of your life.
Absolutely agree with that. Definitely.
And in our comfort zone, I don't think we grow or progress. You always need to put yourself a little bit out of the comfort zone.
I think so. It's easier said than done, but you're absolutely right. We just have to do it. And there's a fantastic book that I read recently. Actually, it's been a couple of years now thinking about it, but I have reread it since. And it's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. And it's a book that's over 25, maybe 30 years old now. And it's very simple. It's based on what we're talking. You will always feel fearful of doing something that's new, but just do it anyway, because a lot of the time it works out very well. You learn new things, you take new opportunities, And even if it didn't work out, you've learned from that episode and you can move on. And, I'd recommend anybody to read that sort of book, because that is exactly what you need in an industry like ours.
I didn't read this book, but I've heard that it is a fantastic book.
Really good book.
It is on my list.
Good.
Mark, how many hours have you been putting into medical aesthetic career at the beginning when you just started?
Well, when I just started, I was obviously doing the training, and I had a very, very small client base. But you put in a lot of hours before and after with your clients, because you're fearful, I suppose. You're just starting off. It's all very well doing the training in the safety of the training room, but when you're seeing your first few patients, you think about it all the time, before and after. And so you're putting a lot more hours in than the actual treatment requires. And certainly when I then set up my own clinic, you're working all hours. I mean, I was in the clinic every day, even if I didn't have clients coming in. There's so much to think about. It's the treatments you're providing, it's the marketing, it's looking after your own staff. These were skills that I, had zero knowledge of before, having just had a salaried career in the NHS. So I can't put a figure on it, but you're working every day, all hours of the day, and that is stressful. But it's if I compare myself now to a few years ago, it's amazing how much I have learned. And so expect to put those hours in, expect it to be stressful, but it will pay off. That's the key thing.
And because you have been working for yourself and you're building your own business, did it feel different to work for NHS? Did it feel, what I mean by this question, do you feel like you're at work, or do you feel that the work become your part of your life?
Yeah, it does become part of your life. You are having to do a lot of things that you weren't trained to do, so there's a huge amount of learning. Suddenly now I'm having to look after my own staff. I have clients coming to me where I have full responsibility for their treatment. Of course, in the NHS, you're working as part of a team, and you're just one little cog, I suppose, in the whole process. But in aesthetics, you are completely responsible, and that includes for any adverse events, however rare they happen to be. And you feel that responsibility. You take the full weight of that responsibility, which is a nice thing as well, because on the whole, patients have a really, really nice outcome. They're really, really happy, and you feel that you've been fully responsible for that. But at the same time, you're always, that responsibility can weigh heavy on you on the odd occasion that you might have a slightly adverse event. But I also like that as well, because I think if you are a responsible practitioner, you take that on as part of your treatment, and you support your client, and you're there for the entire journey. And I think you get an extra or a different you get a different feeling from that. Whereas if you're just working as part of one massive unit, it's a little more anonymous, I think. In that.
Any sleepless nights?
Oh yes, many, all the time when you're starting off, and it'd be like now and again as well. I mean, I still remember when I thought I put the wrong amount of bacteriostatic saline into a vial, because of course in the UK we have 50 unit vials of toxin, as well as 100 unit and sometimes even 200. But in the Philippines it's just 100 unit. And I remember having one sleepless night when I thought I had essentially put a double concentration of Botox into a client earlier in the day, because I was just running on autopilot. Thankfully I didn't. It was the exact amount, but my goodness, yeah, you're up all night. So yeah, there are sleepless nights. And I think you've just got to accept that there are going to be sleepless nights, because you are taking full responsibility now. You're working on your own. You're responsible for absolutely everything that happens. But that's how we learn and develop. So I just think now that's, thankfully it doesn't happen anymore, but expect it. Expect it. It happens.
And did you have a mentor when you started, or through any time in your career?
Yeah, I don't have one particular mentor. I think you're always learning, and I've always liked to learn from different people. Of course, I had all the support of my mentors, including yourself, throughout my training. I really valued having the ability to contact cosmetic courses, and I have contacted them now and again when I've said I've got this particular case or this difficult case. What would you advise? So that has always been really invaluable, because I think it's very easy to feel quite alone in medical aesthetics, but we are a big community, and the vast majority of us are very helpful to our peers, and I think it's in our interest to support each other, because if lots of adverse events happen, if we're not supportive of each other and we start seeing a lot more problems occurring in the industry, you never know what might happen further down the line, and restrictions on our practice, etc., etc. So I think it's important to be supportive of each other, and I've always felt that support from cosmetic courses and people like yourself and others. But there are some other mentors that I've looked at and gone to their training abroad. I was recently at Arthur Swift's training, and he has a very different approach to other big global leaders like Maurizio De Meo, who's a very, very famous practitioner with his MD codes. And I think you've got to think that you've got to find your own way almost. I think we all have very different approaches.
Absolutely.
But I think the principles of good practice are knowing your anatomy, knowing your product, and knowing your patient actually, and what their wishes are, and knowing what they're wanting to achieve, and if you have the ability to achieve that. And I think you can only really be successful when you learn a little bit from everybody and then create your own process with that. And we're always learning.
I like that. That is absolutely such a valid point. I think you bringing everything which is absolutely must have for the practitioner who's just starting in the industry, because I think sometimes it could feel overwhelming and you think, when I will get there where I want to be. But I think it's about learning from others, finding your own niche, and I think no need trying to copy or be someone else, just finding your own way through the different experiences.
I think so. I've always, throughout my medical career, I've always simply copied aspects of different practitioners where I thought that was excellent, either clinical work or communication skills, and I've just taken all of those little bits and sort of amalgamated them into my own practice. And I think that is the way to do it in aesthetics as well. I don't want someone to copy me, and I don't think I should be copying someone else.
But picking up different
exactly,
techniques, different tips, that's fantastic. Do you have a favorite treatment, Mark? What is your favorite treatment?
Oh, no, I don't think I do. I think combination therapy is always good. And when a client comes to me, they often have a very specific problem in mind, or they have a picture that they want. I want to look like this person, I want these lips. And a lot of the time, I don't think I can necessarily achieve it. But with a thorough consultation process and being open with clients, I think what you find is, together with the client, you actually find not necessarily completely different treatment to do, but you create a package for them, or you approach their problem perhaps with slightly different treatments in mind, and that can include combination therapies with toxin and fillers. So I quite like looking at people who come in and say, I've got these lines here, can you just inject them directly? And it's the process of explaining that these lines, your nasolabial folds, might be because of issues elsewhere, and you might benefit from having a little bit in the cheek or a little bit in the jawline or wherever it is, or have you thought about your temples? So whilst I don't have a specific treatment that I like, it's that process of educating the patient and explaining, actually, you might be better off having this treatment instead, or that treatment in combination with something else. And it might be that you end up using less product or a procedure that is less expensive. I don't want to come across and say, oh yeah, you need all of these, and the client thinks he's just trying to get more money off me. But it's just educating them as to what is the right thing for what they're hoping to achieve. And that's the bit that I really like, because I think clients do want to know what's going on, and they love it when you explain and you get the anatomy book out, or explain how this procedure is going to have this effect, and that's an enjoyable part of my treatments, I have to say.
Educating the patients is
absolutely.
the key.
I think so. It makes for happy clients all the time.
Mark, obviously medical aesthetics is growing in popularity, and some think that it is quite saturated market. So do you see the end in sight of its growing, or do you think it will continue to grow even bigger?
I think there is a growing demand for aesthetics, but I think there's also a growing demand for aesthetics that is done correctly. And I think as clients become more and more informed, they do see the complications that can occur. And I think clients are getting more savvy about this and are looking to people who are who are well-trained, responsible. So whilst, yes, there are a lot of people doing medical aesthetics, but with new regulation potentially coming in, I think if you are trained, if you keep your training up, you continue to go on courses, and you maintain best practice, I think you'll do absolutely fine. Those that just do it on the side, or they're not particularly adequately trained, maybe they might fall foul of the upcoming regulation, but that's a good thing. I think we should be promoting very safe and effective medical aesthetics. So I think it's still going to be a fantastic industry to be in. I don't see it waning in demand at all, but you've just got to position yourself as a responsible, well-trained, effective clinician. I think you'll do very, very well.
I think that is a very nice explanation, which already by doing so you answered my next question, which was going to be what advice you will give to practitioner who's starting to increase their patients number. And I suppose the message probably investing in your training be thorough and detailed, meticulous, and well-trained practitioner.
Yes, and I come with it with a medical hat on, like a lot of colleagues do, and you think about the patient or the client being the focus, and yes, it's hard to start up and run an aesthetics business and be independent, but I think if you always have the client as the focus, you can't go wrong. And part of that is always investing in your education, and it always pays off. It always pays back very quickly. It makes you a better clinician. It makes you a more confident clinician. It allows you to expand your repertoire of aesthetic treatments, and people look very, very positively upon that. And even on the very rare occasion that something might go wrong, you have an adverse event, you create a lump in the lip that is showing, the Botox causes a drop in the brow, your clients are going to want help, and they want to know that you're there to help and support them. And so even if errors occur, even if adverse events happen, it goes wrong if you are not there to support them. Okay, they understand, they sign a consent form, you tell them the adverse events that can happen, and so even if it does happen, it's okay. You're there to support them, and on the whole, they will be grateful for that support. It goes wrong where you don't want to see them again, or you think it's somebody else's problem, or you don't know how to dissolve filler, even though you put filler in, you don't know how to dissolve filler. If you don't know how to dissolve filler, go on a course to learn how to dissolve filler. So yes, I think my advice to those practitioners is to invest in your education and make the client the center of the process, and then you can't go wrong. even if something does go wrong.
You're absolutely right, but also I think it's important to highlight, because patient might be watching our podcast, that the severe complication and adverse reaction are very rare.
Very rare.
When there is a practitioner who is trained, who is reputable, and who is medical. They still can happen, but it's a very small percentage of those reactions, and could be multiple factors.
Absolutely.
But what advice would you give, actually, Mark, to the patient who are looking or thinking about having cosmetic treatment, how they should choose the clinic, especially in such misleading market in the UK where everyone is practicing?
Go and see those people. Go to those practitioners and ask questions. And
what questions they should ask?
Qualifications, what procedures they do, to have a look at before and after photos. And go and see multiple people. I have no issues whatsoever sending clients who come to me for an initial consultation to other practitioners, because there are certain things that I don't do that others do, that there are certain things that I think they would benefit from that I can't perform. And I think a good responsible clinician is completely open about that. There'll be no pressure tactics. There'll be no, well, if you have the treatment now, we'll give you a discount. These are all sort of, red flags to me, these sort of pressure tactics. So I think, and a lot of it is gut instinct, okay? A lot of it, if you go to a clinician and you feel they explain things to me, they were clear on the pricing, the follow-up, and I didn't feel any pressure, and they said, you can come back, in a couple of weeks, have a think about it, and we can do your treatment then. These are all very, very good signs. A lot of that just comes from your own gut instinct. But ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions about the treatment and your concerns. And if you do feel that you're getting those sort of pressure tactics, that's a red flag to me, I would say. And always ask a look at reviews. Ask friends and family if they know of any good practitioners, because again, if other people have had a good treatment and process with them, that's a very positive thing as well.
I would say, for me, personal recommendation probably will be number one way how you will find the right practitioner, because if you see someone who looking well and they open about the treatment, always ask for practitioner details. I think that is the best way. And it was very good points that you mentioned about ask for qualifications, but I think specifically in the UK, it need to be medical qualifications, and it can be very easily found. You can easily find practitioner on GMC, GDC, or nursing platform website. So I think that is very important.
Absolutely.
I always believe that medical aesthetic treatments can completely transform patient life, and the result could be life-changing. But what do you think? Do you share the same point of view that correctly prescribed treatment could have a great impact on patient life, and it's not just all about reflection in the mirror?
Oh, absolutely. That's so obvious, I think, when you're working in this industry, that it's very easy, as you say, just to see what the impact is in the mirror. Lips are slightly bigger, or you've got you've taken away some of the lines on your forehead, made the cheeks a little more prominent. But it's the impact further down. It's that confidence then to go out and be more confident in your professional and personal life. And we see that all the time. Do you know what? I see that even with the most simple of treatments, and it could just be good skincare for acne, for example, and some of the some of the nicest feedback I've ever got from clients has just been from being able to control someone's acne, that they could then have wonderful pictures on their wedding day. And that's just knowing your skincare. It's maybe having a course of glycolic acid peels, a little bit of microneedling, haven't even done any toxin or filler to them, but there's been a massive impact later on down the line in their professional and personal life. And so, yes, absolutely. There's a big growing trend now, and I'm not saying I'm an expert in it at all, but there's a big growing trend about wellness, physical health, mental health, in addition to the aesthetics. And I know a lot of practitioners are focusing more and more on that, but they all go hand in hand. If you're thinking about your appearance and taking pride in your appearance and wanting to improve your appearance, a lot of those people are thinking about their physical health, not smoking, eating well, exercising, but they're also thinking about their mental health as well. So it all goes hand in hand, and you can't just say that you're doing these injections just for making the cheeks a little bit more voluminous.
No,
It's a
absolutely.
massive part of everything.
Absolutely not. I agree with you. And I think you mentioned skincare routine and, skin treatments. I think it's a great example of developing discipline because you're starting to get into the routine of looking after your skin. And can you please share with us one or few examples when in your career you have performed treatment that has been life-changing to the patient?
Yes, well, I suppose that one example is a great one. Someone had problems with their skin for years, and they had tried over-the-counter stuff, or they'd search online for skin treatments, and they had a big wedding coming up, and they were very, very self-conscious about that. And yes, they had quite bad acne, but at no point had they ever sort of sat down and been told, these are the things you need to consider. I think that was a life-changing opportunity for that. It wasn't any particular injectable procedure that I'd done, but we'd spent time to say, well, this is the plan, these are the skin treatments we should be doing, these are the peels, the microneedling that we should be doing. And they were extremely grateful for that. And I think sometimes the simplest things are the best. It's not about putting 20 mils of filler into someone.
No.
It's about knowing what do we need to achieve and what's the minimum amount that we can do to achieve it, because you start doing all these expensive treatments. Firstly, it costs a huge amount to the patient. And you might be able to achieve that same result with a lot less if you know what you're doing, if you know your anatomy, if you know what skin treatments work.
Yeah.
And so, I found sometimes the simplest things have had the greatest impact for patients.
Did you get invited to the wedding as well?
Oh, no, not yet. I think that's still coming up, actually. So
Okay.
that's a more recent thing, but yes, hopefully soon.
Mark, what is the greatest achievement and the most memorable moments of your career so far?
Oh, well, I think, do you know what? I think it's actually just going out to the Philippines, getting my license there, which felt like an achievement in its own right, given the difficulties of getting that going. Setting up my own clinic there as well. I'm very proud of managing to achieve that. But also some of the memorable things was, being invited to be a speaker at the AMWC conference in Monaco recently.
Absolutely. You know what? I was so proud when I saw that you're a speaker, because it's absolutely satisfying to see the person who comes to learn from you then fly so high and succeed in their
very
career.
kind.
And seeing you in Monaco was absolute pleasure.
It was so nice to catch up with you there, and it was a great feeling to be able to do that. And again, just talking earlier, it's taking those opportunities because they
Absolutely.
open doors elsewhere. So I think that's probably my proudest moment.
Great. And what would you wish you learned earlier in your career, if you would reflect?
Everything. Oh my goodness. I mean, as we were saying earlier, there are always new treatments coming out, and you always think, I wish I knew about this earlier and earlier. What I would say is, it's not a specific treatment, it's not a specific, bit of practice or technique. I would say I just wish I was more open to taking on new opportunities to begin with. When you begin with, you think you have this very narrow focus, and that's understandable because you're stressed about setting up your own business. You think these are the ways to do certain things. Actually, I wish I was just more open to saying yes to all opportunities. I'm better at doing that now. But if there's an opportunity to come and learn with somebody or go to a certain course, go to a conference, just go and do it, because you'll always get something out of that. There'll always be another opportunity to work with someone, speak at a conference, collaborate with others. And I wish I was doing that more at the beginning. I was not so good at doing that to begin with. I'm better at that now. And that is what I would say to any new practitioner. Just grab the opportunity to learn a little bit from all these different people.
I think it's a fantastic piece of advice, and I think for you it worked out very well, but sometimes if you do have an opportunity and you don't take it, another may never come again.
And you'll regret it. I think you'll regret not taking it.
Exactly. Absolutely. And finally, Mark, where patient or practitioners can find more information about you, or might be some people who want to collaborate with you.
Yes,
How
absolutely.
They can find you?
Well, they can find me in Manila, in the Philippines, at my
I'll
clinic.
come.
Please do. You'll be most welcome. At McKelvie Medical, we're in Manila. We have a website, so it's mckelviemedical.com.
Yeah.
And also we're on Instagram. So we have the clinic Instagram, McKelvie Medical, but also my own personal one, Dr.Mark McKelvie. So I'd love to welcome you and others. Come to the clinic. We love meeting new people. We love collaborating. You could combine it with a trip to the beach at the same time.
What can be better than that?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. It has been a great pleasure. Next episode in Philippines.
Thank you very much, Ola. Thank you.